So 70% of the top opportunities in this space, those juicy 10, 20, 30, 40K a month opportunities, are landed through networking referrals. Plain and simple. That's not my opinion. Those are stats. And so that means if you're only applying for jobs or sitting in a pipeline waiting, you're fighting with thousands of other salespeople who bought the same programs or entered the same pipelines over the bottom 30%. That's why people always ask me, is it flooded? Is high ticket flooded? And I think they're expecting me to, because it's an industry I'm associated with, to be like, no. It is. It is flooded. You have 3 major companies spending $300,000 a month in ads to promote that this is the easiest 10K you'll ever earn, right? So people are piling in. But like any flood, right? A flood doesn't happen in the penthouse or the mid-level. The flood happens at the bottom, right? And so now you're getting more competition for less earning potential. And I think anybody who's in the job market now can relate to that and feel that, right? And so in fact, today, at this very moment, referrals are by far the #1 source of new hires when it comes to 6-figure opportunities. And there's not even a close second. Referrals dominate the job market, especially the higher up you go in earning potential. So honestly, if you don't have a solid inbound referral strategy that you're implementing, the chances of landing a 6-figure opportunity plummet. And you'll always be able to find the exception. You'll always be able to find that person that made it. But for the majority of people, there's a scarce amount of 6-figure opportunities. And so most of those are going through referrals. So if all you're doing is applying for jobs, it is a long road. I can tell you that from experience and from working with over 400 students inside UCM. And thinking about UCM, I honestly can't remember the last time someone in UCM landed a 6-figure gig that wasn't a referral. Like, I would say probably 4 or 5 months ago, right? It's just so rare, and it is purely dependent on your skill. If you come in with a lot of experience and a lot of skill and you look good on a resume, great, you're going to do great. You'll probably get the top of the job applications or the top of the recruiting pipeline. But for everybody else, which is most people don't come in with a ton of experience, especially in the remote high ticket sales space, right? We need to come up with alternate strategies. And so when I came into this industry, no one was talking about networking, wasn't even a word that was discussed. Now they are finally, because I've just been drilling it. People are talking about it. People realize that there is value in it. People are hearing stories of people networking and getting great opportunities, like David shared with us at the start of the call, right? But trainers are realizing that there's more demand and people are becoming smarter and more aware that networking is a part of it. So what they've done is built in the simplest aspect. So it's like, yeah, we cover that too, right? And so most of the networking that's being taught is cold outreach and just send your intro video. Just send intro videos. I know because I get probably 25, 30 intro videos in my message requests on a daily basis. Right? This is not an effective networking strategy. This is just like, throw it up and pray. It's a Hail Mary. Right? It has a low success rate. And so if you are going to develop, you need the principles and understanding the strategy to have these warm inbound referrals coming to you. So other people are looking for opportunities for you. And you need to be able to build a strong network based on value and relationships, not transaction. Cold outreach and intro videos is transaction. Hey, this is me. I'm a high ticket closer. If you're hiring, give me a shout. That's one for one. And if they're not hiring, there's no value and I don't ever want to talk to you. It's salespeople only looking for people that can give them exactly what they want in the least amount of steps as possible. And that's costing them big, right? They're not investing. And so they're always going to be transactional. They're always going to be scrambling for who's hiring. And so if we circle back to recruiters, as someone who's run a recruiting business, I can tell you it's extremely limited. Even on my end, it was. And one of the secrets that I don't think should be so secret is recruiters don't work for you. Recruiters don't work for salespeople. They don't have our best interest. And that's nothing, I'm not saying anything negative. They'll tell you the same thing. So whether you connect with a recruiting company or you end up in a pipeline from some sales training, you are not the priority. That's not how the business model works. Recruiters are loyal to the business owner because that's who pays the bills. That's who pays the money. right? And so they're always going to have the business owner and their business's best interest in mind. Your third string, basically. So the business owner is the client of the recruiter. And the recruiter's job is to make the business owner happy. If they've done that, they've achieved their goal. Right? So that was actually the premise that I started my recruiting company in. Was I thought it would be great to have a recruiting company that valued the salespeople as much as the business owners. But even like even with the best intentions and the best interest of the salespeople in mind, I got to be honest, it was really, really tough to value both equally. When one person is paying you, right, and there's a lot of pressure to fill it quickly and fill it now and fill with an A player, right, you become lenient to that side. And I was trying to stay equal. Right? I imagine someone who's really just trying to make money off business owners, they're very much leaning towards that side, right? And so it's not, again, I'm not pointing the blame. It's a business model. We just have to be aware of it. Recruiters are under immense pressure. Their job is to put ass in seats. Here's a role, fill it as quickly as possible with the best person as possible. Right? If they have to choose between the client and the salesperson, they always should choose the client. That's just the best business practice. Right? So they do not have your goals in mind. They're not making sure you can feed your family. They're not trying to skyrocket your career. In most cases, their job really is to get as overqualified a salesperson in as underqualified a role as possible. They want the A player to go with the B minus business. Right? They want that because they want the business owner to be happy. Right? So I thought it would be great to break down the process a little bit from a recruiting standpoint so you can get to understand their limitations. And again, just want to preface it. I have friends that are recruiters. I think there's a purpose that they serve. I just want to give you the truth so you can make your own decisions. Right? So pipeline companies have their own salespeople. A lot of times, those salespeople actually came from skimming the top of the pipeline, finding the best salespeople and hiring them to sell that pipeline. Their job is to target businesses and, depending on the offer, either sell them the business training or sell them their recruiting service. I know because I've been in that market as well. So if the business is buying the training, it's a high likelihood that they are a new company and haven't developed their sales process. Their offer isn't proven, their marketing is a mess, and they don't have any systems developed. But they were sold on the promise that they would get a salesperson as early on as possible. A lot of business owners don't want to spend time generating their own leads and taking sales calls. And so they do. They get what they want because they pay. And so typically they start out with a setter. And so already you have someone who paid for closer training, is expecting 10K a month with little knowledge, experience, or understanding. And then you have a business owner who's brand new with little experience, knowledge, or understanding. And honestly, like a new salesperson and a new business owner is a recipe for disaster. Because owning my own business, I can tell you there's always problems. There is no business that doesn't have problems every day. And so only through experience or getting help from outside, someone else's experience, can you be able to solve those problems quickly. And then there's another problem and another problem. So if you have a new salesperson, a new business owner, there's no experience to leverage there, right? And that's the majority of the pipelines coming from training programs are that connection. Brand new business owner, brand new salesperson. And so since the business owner just invested 10 to 20K in this trainer, they are typically looking to keep expenses low because they're not making a lot of money. Right? Trainers know this. So instead of getting them to invest in ads and marketing early on, they typically throw them a commission DM setter. This is someone who's maybe a little bit desperate to get in or is feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome or just needs to make some money now and is like, okay, I'll just do this. Right? So in a new business, a DM setter, from what I've seen, can expect to make 0 to 3K. And I've seen the 0, I've seen the 3K, but that's kind of the range. I would say like 2,500 would be like a high average. But basically, the whole time they're an experiment and a guinea pig. And we know that the success rate of coaching programs is quite low, right? We know that in the next 2 years, about 70 to 80% of the businesses will not be here. And then a small percentage of them will never get past the point where they can actually be a big team. So the idea is like, if I'm a fitness, let's say I'm a personal trainer, right? And I'm making, $50,000 a year, let's say. If I come into the remote high ticket sales space as a fitness coach, I can make a lot more money. But let's say I struggle with leads in my audience and my offer, but I can make 20K a month, but I just don't know how to scale it. That's a great living for most people. 20K a month is a great business. It's a great life, but it's not a great business to be hiring other people, because typically the most we can make, if you're a DM setter, it's usually around 5%. That's been going lower, but that's another story, right? If you're a closer, it's 10. It used to be 15. Some people can get 15, but you're looking at like 5 to 15 max. And so if you want to make 10K and your business owner is only making 20K, it just doesn't add up. You're never going to outperform the business, the revenue, or what the business owner makes, right? And so there's a large percentage of businesses that are going to fail, or they're going to be capped at a certain income that doesn't allow someone to grow and develop and have that earning potential. So it really narrows the market, right? So success rate low, the turnover is insane, right? You think turnover is a horrible thing for a pipeline, but it's actually not. They actually need a certain level of turnover to grow their business. There's an optimal level of turnover, which sounds weird, but I'll explain it, right? It's very much like a gym membership. So to survive, a gym needs to sell to people who they know will not show up to the gym. Because if everybody showed up, the gym would get overcrowded, and then it wouldn't be a good place, and they get bad reviews, and they wouldn't be able to sell. So they're banking that a lot of people don't show up. It's the same in this pipeline, right? If every DM setter that they placed worked out, less salespeople would get opportunities, and the pipeline would become overcrowded. So every pipeline has what we call like a replacement window. And mine in my business was 45 days. And basically all that means is if it didn't work out, if I placed someone and it didn't work out in 45 days, I'd have to replace them free of charge. So as far as the business model goes, like just from a selfish revenue standpoint, you either hope that the DM setter does so well that the business owner needs to hire more people, right, which is fairly rare and takes a long time, or that the DM setter does good enough for about 2, 3, 4 months. Then the business owner has to replace them and pay the fee, right? So pipelines actually bank on things not working out at a certain time. They don't want it within the 30-day window or 45-day window, but they don't want you to be in that position for a year unless you're absolutely crushing it and you can scale, and then they can hire more people. But they want to get paid again, right? So again, it's not your best interest, right? So final thing I'll say about the pipeline, if you are international or you are inexperienced, it is a long, hard road. And for anybody that's been in one, who's either international or inexperienced, it's tough. It really is tough. Now, you'd think that recruiting pipelines, their job is to find the best person for the job, but this is not the case. The majority of the process is about eliminating candidates, right? So if we look at the application process for a minute, right, it's totally broken. It's so outdated, but you're looking at, okay, the average job has 200 applicants. And they're not going to interview 200 applicants. They want to have 3 to 5 nice interviews, and they want to offer one role, right? So if all things were created equal, which they're not, you'd have a 0.5 chance of landing the gig in most cases. But things are not created equal. The recruiter or the hiring manager needs a way to easily eliminate 98% of the applicants, and that is a chore. I can tell you, sorting through applications is a chore. No one likes to do it. It was one of my most hated things about recruiting. You can't interview 200 people. I know at the time I'm eliminating someone who could potentially be the best person for the job, but I just don't have time to be so clear about that to make those decisions. So I have to make a process that is just quick, that can get me moving, right? So what I do is I create requirements. Sometimes they're meaningful, sometimes they're random, right? Like living in the US time zone is a big one, which makes no sense because if a salesperson is willing to work US hours, it really doesn't matter if they live in the US. But that doesn't matter. It's just a great way to eliminate a good chunk of candidates so I don't have to do 200 interviews, right? So I work with a ton of international students inside UCM who sat in a pipeline for 3 to 6 months before losing hope, and then realizing that they've been disqualified for every single opportunity strictly because of geography. And so I've spoken to international students who are honestly amazing. They're crushing it because we've taught them how to get referral strategies outside of that and not sit in the pipeline, right? They have 2 to 3 years of sales experience coming into this industry. That's more than most. They're hardworking, they're great communicators, but they sat by time after time and watched someone with no experience get the job over them because they're located in South Dakota, right? There's so many stupid indicators or disqualifiers that make no sense, but it's just a way to filter down. So it could be gender, it could be experience level, it could be age, it could be background, it could be accents, right? All common ways that people are eliminated from the process. We'll never hear that, but that's what's happening behind the scenes, right? The process is totally broken and it was never built to help you, the salesperson, achieve your goals. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't apply for jobs. I'm not saying you shouldn't put your name in with recruiters. If you fit the criteria, it can work out. I'm just saying if that's your only strategy, you're going to be extremely limited, right? So dive into a little bit of the strategy that changed my life and got me those results. Basically, it was, I decided that I don't look good on paper. I've never been a resume guy. And I know that when I get in front of people, I have something that people see, but I wasn't getting in front of people. And if I was getting in front of people, it wasn't the right people. So I realized that looking around, who was most successful? It wasn't the people in the pipeline. A lot of people were struggling. So I looked at it and I was like, well, the most successful person here, the one who's winning constantly, is the pipeline itself. And so I decided, like, I'm not waiting for the pipeline anymore. I'm going to compete with them. So I started to realize a lot of these pipelines hired someone within the pipeline to sell their pipeline, to sell their recruiting services. And I thought, well, if they're charging 3 to 15K to introduce me, why don't I introduce myself for free? Why do I need to have that introduction? If they're marketing themselves as a solution provider, why don't I cut out the middleman and market myself as a solution provider? If they're marketing themselves, hey, I have access to Closer, me too. I have access to Closer, it's me. I'm the most accessible to myself than anyone, right? And so I realized that I actually have competitive advantages over these pipelines, recruiters, and sales trainers. It doesn't cost anything to hire me. I can target directly who I want. I'm leaner. I don't have those operating expenses, right? And so in that moment, I stopped thinking about myself as a job applicant or a salesperson, and I started thinking of myself as a closer agency of one who just happened to have one person for hire, and it's me. Right? And that model changed everything. You know, I took everything I learned, all my experiences, and I started developing a client avatar. Instead of thinking who's hiring, which is one of the most limiting questions you can ask yourself and very misguided, I changed it to who do I want as a client? Who do I want to work with? And that changed my whole view on the industry. And all I started to see was more opportunities. And so I started competing with these pipelines. I increased my visibility. I made myself known to the marketplace, whether they were hiring or not. I started planting those seeds. I didn't know it, but looking back, what I was doing was basically building my own pipeline. I was building my own organic funnel for my own service. And so I worked my ass off. I basically DM set my own interviews and calls. And 2 weeks later, I had 8 interviews total. I got 6 job offers from that, 4 of which were 6-figure opportunities. I chose a job in e-commerce, and that year was the year I made close to $500,000, 438,000, right? And the funny thing is, I didn't improve in sales, right? I didn't take any extra training, but my income was through the roof, right? And I didn't have to like prove myself on the interview as much, that I didn't even think about this, but just an outcome. Like I wasn't having to prove myself to business owners that I could sell because they witnessed it. I got their attention, I connected with them, I sent them a DM, I qualified them, and then I closed them on the call. I basically full stacked my own service and career, right? So I don't want to just make this all about my story. I want to give you some tactics and knowledge to apply after this call. So I thought we could talk about a few things that I see people struggle with, right? One of the big ones is the ultimate catch-22 that most people don't get over, and that's why they leave, right? It's, I need experience to get the job, but wait a second, I need the job to get experience, right? And that's a trap. And then we get reactive and kind of desperate. And then it's like, I'll take anything. right? I hear a lot of people when they get through and they've just spent 10K on training and they're 3 months in and they're not making any money. It's like, I'll just take anything. I'll start at the bottom. I'll something better than nothing. And that's not always the case, right? But the underlying idea here is experience is a concern, it's a fear, and in some cases it's a smokescreen. And for anybody that knows or has been in UCM, I don't believe in objections, because objections represent that you want the sale, that you were going to do everything to get the sale. And I don't think that's our job. Our job is to facilitate the best decision possible for the person in front of us. And so they can't object. It's very rare that they would object. It's like, no, I don't want to make the best decision here. No, I don't want you to help me organize this decision. Objections only come when the prospect identifies that you want the sale more than you want them to make the best decision. So I believe there's concerns. I feel there's fear. I feel there's misguided information. I feel there's questions and smoke screens, but I don't believe there's objections. And so that to me is what experience is. And people are lazy, not in the like a negative context, but they don't always communicate exactly what they need, right? And so when you think about experience, why someone would say experience, they're not really talking about experience. Because think about it, like if I had 10 years experience and I closed one deal and I just sat around doing nothing the rest of the time, is that valuable experience? Does that somehow put me above someone that's been there 6 months and is crushing it? No, but that's experience. I've experienced that, but I'm just not good. Right? And so the experience is not important. But again, people are lazy with their communication. So what are they trying to communicate to us? Because that's what we have to do. The first prospect we have to sell is the business owner. So we have to understand their communication. But our imposter syndrome kicks in and we're worried about our experience. And then someone says it and we just shell up and maybe I should take a shittier job and get some experience. But again, what you get experience is with a business owner that doesn't have the process set up. So you don't make any money. So that reflects poorly on you, because the next interview you go to, person's like, hey, tell me about your last 6 months. I've made 3 deals. Oh, that's not good. Next, right? So when people say experience, I want everybody here to think of one thing. There's one thing that they're really asking you. And it's based on certainty, another psychological need, right? What they're asking you is, can you do this job? And the easiest way for them to just figure that out in their brain is like, well, you've done it before, you can do it again. So they settle on that, but there's lots of different ways to figure out if someone can do the job. But it's not the prospect or the business owner in this case's job to organize that. It's you as a salesperson's job, right? And so they think you've done it before, your certainty, right? And so experience is not meant to be accepted. Lack of experience is not meant to be like, okay, see you later, right? It's meant to be challenged. It's meant to be understood. I'll give you an example of how I figured this out. When I was a recruiter, right, everybody came in and every business owner wanted 2 years, a person with 2 years experience or $1 million in sales. 2 years and $1 million. I was like, wow. One, those are really round numbers. So a good hint for a little sales tip. If anybody gives you really round numbers and they seem odd and so exact, challenge that a little bit, because it's likely they just came up with that out of the blue, right? If someone gives you a direct number, like I want to make, 27,500, they put some thought into it. That they've built that out of what that will provide for them. If someone was like, yeah, I want to make 10K, right? I always challenge them. Why do you want to make 10K? Why not 8? Why not 12? And they're like, I don't know. I just was told I could, right? And so again, when you're selling this business owner on you and your lack of experience being able to do the job, we need to be able to challenge those, right? So 2 years and $1 million in sales, what I would always do is, instead of like, okay, so you won't take an inexperienced rep, because then they would say no. They've already set that standard. I would say, okay, what about if I found someone that had 11 months or 20 months and 900K in sales? And they're like, oh yeah, of course. I'm like, okay, what about like someone with 6 months, they've sold 100K a month and they're just a great culture fit, I know they're going to be successful? Yeah, absolutely, right? So all of a sudden, that's not even fighting it. 2 questions, and I've got it down from 2 years to 6 months. I've got it down from $1 million in sales to 600K. And I can continue doing that. I've gotten people who said 2 years, $1 million, down to like Well, if someone had the right characteristics and they were willing to learn and work hard, then we would take them. So again, it doesn't exist. They just created these barriers. And because we have imposter syndrome, we're not willing to challenge it. Right? So when you say experience, other than time spent on the job, what are you really looking for? I'll say that again, because that is a question that you should build in to your DMs and your interviews. So when you say experience, other than time spent on a job, what are you really looking for? And what you'll find is when they answer it, all the answers have nothing to do with experience. Right? It's all about, well, I want someone who's highly skilled, or I want someone who's extremely reliable, or I want someone who understands this market, or I want someone I really trust, right? The more you challenge it, the more you realize that that was just a placeholder to make things easy, right? So when you're speaking to someone in the DMs about your job, right, or you're going through the hiring process, I don't care if they ask you about your experience. I don't care if they ask you why you got into sales or what your favorite color is. You know, how do you feel about bird watching? It doesn't matter. A lot of the interview questions people just Google anyway. They have no rhyme or reason. So whether it's a business owner, a recruiter, a hiring manager, they are always only asking you three things. There's only three answers you need to provide in all of your answers. Right? If you can prove these three things, not just say it, but prove it, you will get the offer every time. The three questions that they will never say, but what they're asking themselves and asking you is one, can you do this job? Which is what? It's capability. Are you capable of doing the job? Is it possible for you to be able to do this job? Will you do this job well? Right? So can you do this job? Capability is number one. Second, will you do this job? Reliability, number two, right? Biggest problem in this industry, human reliability, by far, biggest headache for business owners. They care about it more than anything, right? Reliability. And then number three, do I want you to do this job? Which is likability, or what we call culture fit. So no matter what questions they ask you, if you can always be able to tie it back to your capability, your ability to do this job, your reliability, will you do this job consistently, and will you do what you say you're going to do? And then do you fit in the organization? If you can answer those three, you're going to get offers over people that have more experience than you, right? But again, it comes back to imposter syndrome. We all feel it, right? So many people feel that imposter syndrome. You're coming into a new industry, right? You forget to focus on what you do have to offer instead of what you don't. And the example I'll use, like, imagine I had a bike shop. I just started a new bike shop. It's my dream. And you walked in, and I just started going off on, we're a new bike shop. Yeah, we don't have all the models yet, and we don't sell this, we don't sell that. It would be really strange, right? That you'd be like, whoa, this is a weird experience. I just came in to look around, right? So it's the exact same thing with new salespeople, right? It's the exact same thing they do. They let imposter syndrome take over, right? And they refer to themselves as new. If you're one of those people that's talking about yourself as a new closer, a new setter, new to this industry, a newbie, let that go. Cut that out. That's your own imposter syndrome. Like, you want to shine the light on yourself so that you don't get exposed, so people don't find out. People don't care. People don't care. Again, can you do the job? Will you do the job? That's all they care about, right? So cut the new stuff out. Stop trying to warn people subconsciously that you might not be great, right? Lean into it. And then trust that you're going to take a growth mindset and develop into the role, right? So stop referring to yourself as new. Stop telling people you can only work part-time. Right? I hear that a lot. Oh, I can only work part-time. What do you mean only? You think about how much time you're devoting to a business. If it's 20 hours to grow that business, that's beneficial, right? And so the difference, right, is I could say I'm only working part-time. I can only work evenings and weekends. Or imagine this. Yeah, so one of the best things that I've found is most impactful to business owners is I actually cover a lot of the time where most people don't like to work, those undesirable hours, but the hours where most humans are available. So I cover a lot of after hours, evenings and weekends, probably the times where you're struggling to get your current salespeople to fill. Those are my favorite times. That's the service I provide. I've just told them I can only work part-time, but I can only work part-time, or here's the benefit of the service I provide and what I have to offer you and how it's beneficial. It's the same thing, but it's communicated in a way that benefits them instead of like, I'm new and I'm only part-time, right? And so I think it's so important, right? That not referring to yourself as a newbie, not shining the light on your limitations or what you can't sell, right? But focusing on what you do have to offer. I have my time, I have my effort, I have my mindset, I have student mentality, I have the competitive nature to get better every day. I'm an investment, right? I'm going to eventually make you or your competitor $1 million. You get to decide at this moment who you want that $1 million to go to. Comes from that internal commitment and confidence, not in my ability today, but no one hires for today. I'm 17 years in. If I got hired today, it would take me some time to figure it out, just like anybody else. Businesses don't hire for today. They invest in the future, right? So sell them that future. Sell them what you can do for them. And stop talking about your training like it's just a key to all the businesses. I actually heard a recruiter the other day discussing with his team to get salespeople to stop leading and just confessing all about their training, right? No one cares about the training. Again, it's like selling a feature, right? What is the benefit? What have you learned? What have you developed? Right? I get so many people that reach out. I just finished with the best trainer. I'm ready to sell. I feel it's like, well, you just proved you're not, because you didn't sell me. You didn't build any, you didn't ask me any questions. You didn't find out if I was hiring. You didn't find out my problems. So you're telling me you can sell. You tell me you went through this training, but obviously it didn't click because you haven't used any of the principles in this interaction, right? They just think, hey, I got my certificate, I'm ready, right? Then you haven't absorbed what is actually in that training, and that's going to benefit the business owner. Your capability based on the training is more important than the training and the name behind it, right? So to prove how little experience plays in the hiring process, I thought I would share a checklist. We used to give this to our hiring managers and business owners who were doing their own hiring. I've seen something similar a lot of times. Pay attention to this, right? It's all based on a point system. Everything is equally 1 point, right? So here's the questions, and the business owner has to go through, or the hiring manager has to check these off, right? Did the interviewee ask any clarifying questions if they weren't sure exactly what the question was? Point, right? Did they give examples of things that they were currently improving? Did it seem like they did their research? Were their answers in line with your core values? Did they show the desire to grow within your company? Did they speak positively? No negative remarks, no blame, no justification, no victimizing themselves or blaming the company they just worked with. Right? Did they keep it professional? Did they seem focused? Were they able to showcase their storytelling ability? Could you see them speaking to your clients? Could you see yourself working with them on a daily basis? Did they seem confident? And then after the interview, go directly to an interview scorecard and rate out of 5. First impression, professionalism, preparation, communication, integrity, reliability, past performance and transferable skills, coachability, personability, passion, drive, and culture fit. Now, thinking about that list, did you notice how little of the scorecard had to do with experience? The only thing on there was past performance, and it was also lined with transferable skills. Right? So a lot of the important feedback from an interview you'll never hear. We hear it on the other end. And so the good thing about my process in a lot of cases is you can actually skip the interview process. When you develop a strong networking game, and we see it on a daily basis, a strong networking game and inbound referral strategy, what you'll find is the interview process turns into a casual conversation between two equals. If followed correctly, you can actually turn the interview into a sales call where you're selling your service. And I know this sounds crazy, and so many people, either they challenge it or they're like, yeah, it's a good idea and never do it. But honestly, think about where we fit in the marketplace. Think about any other service provider. Facebook ads, email marketers, copywriters, scaling, TikTok, web design, whatever it is, how do they sell their service? How do they get their next gig? They identify prospect, they market themselves, they pre-qualify, they book a call, they do a discovery, they cater their service, and pitch to meet the needs of the business owner and solve problems. Then the business owner decides the confidence level they have in that person being able to solve those problems, capability, right? And being able to deliver the solution, reliability, and then terms are agreed and negotiated. Happens everywhere for every service provider, basically, but us. But honestly, that's my vision for this industry. Why, especially, it makes more sense for us than anybody. We're in the sales industry. Why would we not sell our service? Why can I not sell myself as a salesperson? Why do I have to jump through stupid hoops so that other people can get paid to place me? I can place myself, right? Because we are dependent on others to do it, because we have a low level of certainty, so they get all the benefits. They make all the money. They decide our career move. They tell us how long we have to be in a certain position before we can make the next move. And we're basically putting our lives, our families' lives, our future in the hands of someone who I've already identified their best interest is for the business owner. And we trust them. It makes no sense to me, right? And so I think it's a good place to end. I appreciate you all so much for showing up. For anybody that made it to the end, I really believe kind of the next segment of this is most people think they're pretty good at interviews, great at interviews. Having done a lot of interviews, most people are not good at interviews. Most people are not great at interviews. I call it kind of the server disease. Like, you ever see a bunch of dudes at a bar or restaurant, and the server is nice to them, and they all think like, oh, server really likes me. That's their job, right? And so just because you don't get critical feedback on an interview doesn't mean that you've mastered the interview process. So, special treat, I will be hosting a masterclass on interview prep. I have a very structured way to do interview prep that will make you, I want you all to go into an interview and just be like, wow, that was it. I want you to go in so prepared that it's like, oh, I was expecting it to be so much worse or so much harder, right? And so I'm going to do interview prep and interview mastery next week. I'm going to give a special discount to anybody that was on this call today. It's just $10, right? $10, and we might even give a little bit to charity, or you can donate more and we'll put that to charity. But $10, I'm going to charge everybody else so much more. No, it's probably going to be a little bit more, but $10 to join. If you're interested, reach out and look out for a post. I'll probably be posting today or tomorrow. And also just reach out to me. I love having conversations. I'm passionate about helping people. I'm not hiding behind a paywall. Like, if you need something, reach out. If you have a question, if you have an offer and you're like, oh, I don't know, like, I'll take a look at it. Right? Like, we're part of the community. That's part of networking, is providing value to each other, right, for the common good. So don't be a stranger. Don't feel like you have to be in UCM to reach out. I don't bite. But I hope you got some value out of this. The big takeaway for me is take your career and your finances in your own hands. Don't let other people profit off placing you in BS jobs that they just created, right? Don't be someone's guinea pig. Like, this is important. It's the difference between 2 to 4 to 5K and 10 to 50K. And I've seen both sides, and I know it's possible for you. So I believe there's a better way, and I hope you got some value out of this, and reach out and say hi. Have a good day, folks.
Thanks, JP.